Guys, what we're going to do here is 6.6 liter MUI. We're going to do injector synchronization, and we'll walk you through that here. First thing we got to do, obviously, is remove the valve cover. I've ran the engine for a little bit just to get some oil up in the upper end to keep all that lubricated. The fuel shutoff solenoid, we have a couple options on what we can do to get that readied for injector synchronization. So this is a 3-wire. In a 3-wire scenario, we can cock the fuel shutoff solenoid by cranking the engine slightly and then removing batteries so we don't have it to unlatch. In a 2-wire scenario, we can just leave the key on while we're doing it. The third, which would work on either one, is that we can do a full fuel shutoff solenoid removal. So once we get the fuel shutoff solenoid out of the way, where it's not in our way, then we're going to remove rocker arm assemblies 1 and 2. Now, we could remove the rest of them, but we're just going to do it by removing 1 and 2. So again, we'll never use an impact on an internal engine component. So we're going to just take and remove those rocker arm assemblies, keep them together as an assembly, so when we put them back on, everything's matched and ready to go.
Hey Jeremy,
yeah.
Video down here.
What?
We don't have video on the TV.
None at all?
None. Press record, it's gonna work.
Oh, really?
So you want to start over? Or?
No, I don't start over.
Take 2.
You guys can just get closer.
So there's my rocker arm assembly number 1. I'll take it off, we'll put it on a pig mat, and you can mark them if you're worried about it. I just set them in the way that they go. I'll make sure my push rods are still seated but yet backing out of the way. That's going to be the big problem that you'll have, is making sure those push rods are seated properly when you go to put this back together. That oil that from running the engine lubricates everything and gets it ready to go. If you're going to do it on a dry engine, you would want to put some just clean engine oil as lubrication on the rack, on top of the injectors, and it'll tell you that right in the special instructions. You kind of take care to make sure that those push rods don't pop up and out of the way when they come off. I've just done it enough that I'm used to that. So I'll make sure, first of all, I've got oil on top of each one of those injectors. Okay, that's pretty important because when I go to put these hold downs on there, you want to make sure that they're lubricated. These hold downs, there's 6 of them in the kit. They're going to go on just like this. And you guys are welcome to get in closer. You can move that fuel tank out of the way if you want to. I'm probably going to make this look too easy on you, I promise you. This hold down is just going to compress that spring down in the injector a little bit. When we handed around an injector yesterday, I told you that it had to be slightly compressed in order for the rack to move freely. So that's what we're doing right now. It's just holding that down just slightly. There's no specific dimension or anything. That hold down comes in from the side. That's why the oil on top of there is helpful in order for that to work properly. Okay, then you're going to take a pair of needle nose vice grips, and they are part of the kit. And you're going to go right on the rack, okay? And this rack is not where the open spots are. Nothing goes in there, so you're not going to hurt it. But we're going to go right on the rack. And we're going to move that rack back and forth. Okay, there's a lot of places in the book where it's going to reference fuel off position. Talked to you yesterday extensively about what fuel off means. A lot of people will try to memorize, well, this is fuel off and this is fuel on, right? So if I take it towards me, that's fuel off. Problem is, you go around to the other side of the engine, it's the opposite. So what am I going to look for fuel on and fuel off? The pin is against the injector body, exactly right. So that pin needs to come back and hit the injector body. That's fuel off. See, I've got full free movement, just like I showed you yesterday on the trainer. Full free movement of that rack. You know what I mean? It's just open and ready to go. Now, if the solenoid was in the shutoff position, it would be pushing it towards shutoff. So my vice grips are on there. Then I need to put in the thing called the goalpost, and that's what we call it, the goalpost. I don't know. There may be a better name for it than the goalpost, but it's got that little spring plunger on there that I talked about. It's plastic. It breaks off, so you need to be careful. The goalpost looks like this. I need to take the fuel rack towards the fuel off position, drop in the goalpost. It'll come right down behind that injector spot. You can look in there and see where it's at. But if that was in the fuel on position, when I put that in and tighten those down, it would simply break off that little tab. Once I get the goalpost in, then there's a gauge block. That gauge block is specifically 3.5 millimeters is what the thickness of that gauge block is. So I'll set that gauge block in here like that, and then I'll hook it over the top of the goalpost. But it's going to go in between the injector pin and the injector stop. So that's going to hold that then at 3.5 millimeters, number one. So I'll check that to make sure that it's at the right position. If there is one spot where people typically make a mistake, this is it. Is not setting this up, but checking where that's at. So I use a speed wrench extensively because nothing here is high torque. This is going to measure the travel of that injector. Got a dial indicator here. It's an electronic dial indicator. Everyone has an electronic dial indicator on it. Turn it on. It's very simple. Nice thing about being electronic is it's going to zero itself when I want it to. So I took the gauge block back out, and I'm just going to make sure I got travel on my dial indicator. In other words, it reads anytime I move this, right? So I can go all the way full to fuel on, and I'm still reading, and I can go all the way to fuel off, and I'm still reading. Understand? You want to make sure that it's set in at a depth where it doesn't quit contacting that. So I've got travel both ways, right? So first thing I'm going to do now, hardest part, I got it all set up, right? Go to fuel on, zero my dial indicator. Make sure I'm zeroed at fuel on, so I'm up against the goalpost, right? I put my block in, I let up, I should be between 1.25 and 2.25 millimeters. That's simply stating that I have enough pressure pushing over against it. Now, if I go to fuel on, I'm at zero. I go to fuel off, I'm at 0.88 millimeters. I'm supposed to be between 1.25 and 2.25. So I'm not going to work there, right? So what I'll do is just try to loosen up my goalpost and see if I can get any difference with it. I need more travel. I'll zero my dial indicator. I'm at 1.13 is the most travel I can get out of there. Not a big deal, we just make a slight adjustment on that goalpost itself. Usually you don't have to readjust it, so somebody's adjusted this one for us and it's a little tight. So all I'm going to do is loosen up the nut on there, and I'm going to do it right in here. You might want to take it out your first couple times if you have to make an adjustment. I'm going to do it right in here with a pair of needle nose and a 7/16 wrench. Just give myself a little bit more room in there. Now we'll zero again, let up against the block, zero again, let up against the block. I'm supposed to be between 1.25 and 2.25, I'm at 1.44. So I'm beautiful. I got plenty of tension against that, right? Everybody good with me so far? Okay, go to fuel on, take out the block, let up on my pliers, pull them towards fuel off. Now I'm going to zero again. Every time from here on out, I'm going to zero at fuel off. Okay? So fuel off, I zero. Think of fuel shut off, 0 millimeters a rack. Those two are copacetic, go together. So there's fuel off, zero, right? Okay, I go back towards fuel on, I put in my block, I let up, I should be around 3.5 millimeters. Okay, so I push towards fuel on and let up, push towards fuel on and let up, I'm at 3.57. Consistent, right? Everybody see that? So now what I'm going to do is leave that block in and go set every one of them at 3.57. Told you it's 3.50. It's, you know, there's a little bit of tolerance there. So once I get what that number is, set the rest of them at 3.57 plus or minus 0.02. So remove this assembly right off here, and I can leave it all together as an assembly. I'll remove these bolts and get them ready. There's washers on these bolts too. Where I'm from, washers does have an R in it.
Laugh, that was a joke.
You're making fun of me.
So I'll take all these bolts out so we have a place where I can put my fixture.
I'm sorry, Mike. Better be.
Move my fixture over to number 2. I'll make sure that ball is centered on the end of the rack. And I'll tighten up my fixture. Now, tell me, I got to zero this dial indicator, right? Because there's a lot of movement there. Which way do you think I should put the fuel rack in order to zero it? Fuel off, very good. Make sure I got free travel. I go to fuel off, zero the dial indicator. Make sure I got 0 every time. I let up, I push towards fuel on and let up. Push towards fuel on and let up. Push towards fuel on and let up. I'm consistent 3.63. What am I supposed to be?
3.7.
3.57. Yep. So I'm just a touch off. This engine would probably run fine, but we're going to do it right. So I loosen this adjustment screw, make a minor adjustment. Make your adjustment and then recheck. 3.55. Okay, what am I supposed to have?
3.57.
Plus or minus?
2.
0.02. So I'm good on that sync. So now I simply move it on to the next one. It's not a difficult procedure once you get it down. And this is spelled out in the book. I'm just doing some of it here from memory. So there, now I did number 2, I'm on number 3. I go towards fuel off. Now, it gets a little bit more difficult here because I've got my rocker arms on. But I can make you take all of them off, but then you have to put them all back on. So I make sure I got free rack travel, I do. I zero at fuel off. Make sure I got 0 again. Make sure I got 0 again. I'm at 3.59.
You're at 0 now.
Hmm?
0 now.
Yeah, I'm 0.01 off. Fuel on and let up. Fuel on and let up. Fuel on and let up. Might be just a tad bit. See, there's a little fluctuation. Yeah, I'm a tad bit heavy on this one. 368, pretty consistent. So we'll dial this one down just a touch. Now, we'll be better off from that side so we can see what we're doing. Gets a little tighter in there. We can go right down in here. Again, it's hard to try to adjust it and watch the dial indicator at the same time. So what you'll do is make a minor adjustment and then recheck it. So my fuel off is still at the same place. 354, 355, 355, 356. I'm done. 3 checks within the same spot and I'm good. You'll have to get a feel down, that's important. That you do it the same way every time, just like you did number 1.